So the first card of 2024 just wrapped up, UFC Vegas 84, and a lot of interesting results did take place on this card. My picks went 8-3, which I think isn't a bad start to start the year, considering I had a really bad start to 2023. And of course, I am going to be very excited for UFC 297, as I thought they played a really, really cool promo on that main card there for the 297 card. So my predictions for that card will be out in less than 24 hours from this card coming out. Let's start off with the first fight of the night. Overall, really good card. A lot of finishes. A lot of good prospects breaking out. Some prospects, unfortunately, losing. And, yeah, let's talk about it. Joshua Van taking on Felipe Bunez. He beat Felipe Bunez. He had a pretty bad first round, but really took over in the second round, of course, as he has lost, I believe, every single first round of his UFC career, but he takes over towards the end. I thought the size difference was apparent. I have been saying that Joshua Van is small for 125. I think that was pretty obvious in this fight here. So hopefully Joshua Van can, I mean, he's making it work, of course. But I'm just thinking when he does take on the future fighters that are quite big at 125 that like to wrestle, maybe that size could be an issue. But as for Van, was able to keep the fight on the feet for the most part, was able to outbox Felipe Bunez, who didn't look too bad, but he did gas out, and then Van just completely dominated him towards the end of that second round with a crazy finishing sequence with a lot of right hands, a lot of rips to the body, which you like to see, and a lot of knees to the head as well. Good KO for Joshua Van. Hopefully he gets a 50G bonus. Tom Nolan took on Nicholas Motta, and Tom Nolan was a guy that I was really high on. A lot of people were really high on, and I think that he is going to be a great prospect at this weight class. He's still not 24 years old, but in hindsight, man, he just isn't very defensively sound at all, is he? He went out there against Nicholas Motta, left himself open every single time he was throwing strikes, and Motta just caught him and knocked him out pretty badly in the first minute. Now, there was a lot of ground and pound. Tom Nolan was trying to scramble, but then at the end of the day, Motta finished him. The fight was over, and Motta gets it done. And it's interesting for Motta because Motta is not a guy that I rate too highly, so hopefully this is just a bit of a blemish for Tom Nolan and we can see him make a big comeback in the future. But yeah, just left himself open there and got caught very early on into the fight. So that was my first wrong pick of the card. The next one was Gene Silva. Knocked out Weston Wilson in the first round like he was expected to do. Gene Silva by KO in round 1 on the BC odds was -110. It wasn't even plus money for Gene Silva to knock out Weston Wilson. Weston Wilson's just really bad at striking, man. I've been saying it for a while. I mean, he's only fought in the UFC twice, but his striking is just really, really bad. And he's a good grappler, but he just doesn't get the fight down to the ground. And even though Weston Wilson looks really bad, I thought Gene Silva looked pretty bad as well. Like, he just wasn't able to close the distance against Weston Wilson. He was very low volume against a guy that just genuinely had nothing for him. It was an odd performance, I thought, to be honest, but Gene Silva got it done. had a weird post-fight. I think Gene Silva's a future fade. I didn't think he looked that great. I know he got the KO in the first round, but I genuinely didn't think that it was that great of a performance from Gene Silva. Weston Wilson, I'd be surprised if he gets a third shot in the UFC. If they do give him a fight, it's not going to be a winnable one, to be honest. I don't think the UFC is going to want Weston Wilson to stick around. Farid Basharat went out there and beat Taylor Lapilus. Really good performance from Farid Basharat. Taylor Lapilus just didn't do enough when the fight was on the feet. And Farid Basharat got like 5 takedowns in this matchup. Was just constantly able to use that wrestling. And then when the fight was on the feet, he wasn't lost because he's a good striker and a good wrestler grappler. Was able to use his fully well-rounded game plan against Taylor Lapilus and took down a really good opponent. Taylor Lapilus is no joke. We all know how good Taylor Lapilus is. He beat Callan Loughran in his last fight. Before that, had a lot of success. I believe it was with Brave and Aries FC. Farid Basharat, a legit prospect. His brother Javid Basharat, of course, is also a great prospect. These two guys are guys to look out for. I'd love to see Farid Basharat fight sometime soon. I think that would be fantastic. Maybe on that Saudi Arabia card, which is only in about 2 months, but he didn't take any damage. Marcus McGee defeated Gaston Bolaños. Really good performance from Marcus McGee, in my opinion. I thought he looked great. And Gaston Bolaños, as we all know, really good striker. Really, really good striker. And I was saying, and a lot of other predictors were also saying on YouTube, if this is a full 15-minute fight on the feet, Gaston Bolaños will look a lot better than plus 190. Marcus McGee looked like a minus 230 favorite even when the fight was on the feet, and he did show us some wrestling, which we've never really seen out of Marcus McGee, like, at all. Even on the regional scene, he never really wrestled. So he did try and get the wrestling going. You could tell that it is a little bit of a weakness in his game, that offensive wrestling. But he looked so good on the feet, it didn't matter. He was able to close the distance a lot. He was throwing a lot of hooks when I thought he could have been throwing straight punches, but it didn't matter. Once again, ripped the body, got a crazy finishing sequence, was trying to get a walk-off KO, kind of did get it. Gaston Bolaños just didn't really have anything for him, to be honest, especially in the second round. Yes, this was a second round KO. Great performance from Marcus McGee. Preston Parsons beat Matthew Simburger. This was the second fight I got wrong on the card, I believe. Yes, it was. I picked Matthew Simburger. God, his fight IQ is so bad. He actually loses because of how bad his fight IQ is. He initiated in wrestling with someone that's a better wrestler. Like, Matthew Simburger wants to lose. I feel like he doesn't want to win with the way that he fights. It's the most frustrating thing I've ever seen in my life. Parsons looked pretty good. I mean, he just did what he does, moving forward all the time, shooting for takedowns, was able to out-grapple Simburger, was able to get him down, of course, was able to get a lot of submission attempts as well that Simburger was fighting to get out of. Just a really bad performance from Matthew Simburger and a really good performance from Preston Parsons. A good win for Preston. I think they're only 28 years old. Maybe you could see him take on some pretty good guys in the future. Maybe Preston Parsons, I saw, versus Jared Gooden, was mentioned by, I believe, Dan at Best Fight Picks on Twitter. They could be good. They could be a good fight to make next. I will make a fight to make next video probably tomorrow after my UFC 297 prediction video. Bueno Cortez Acosta beat Andrei Arlovski. I thought he looked really bad in this fight. To be honest, this was a really disappointing performance from Bueno Cortez Acosta. I thought he was going to go out there and knock out Andrei Arlovski. He was a minus 750 favorite. He was expected to go out there and knock out Andrei Arlovski. He just looks really bad. I know Andrei Arlovski didn't look that great either, but he's 45 years old, so we can let him get away with it. Waldo's meant to be like this up-and-coming boxing prospect. And I will admit, I've overrated Waldo Cortez Acosta. I was really disappointed in this. I think Waldo Cortez Acosta kind of showed that he might be a future gatekeeper at 265 pounds. Just really bad performance from Waldo. Just really bad. I'm so disappointed. I mean, he beat Andrei Arlovski, but, you know, it's Andrei Arlovski. He's 45, and he couldn't knock him out. And he's this boxer with a crazy amount of power. Yeah, that was that fight. Bruno Ferreira took on Phil Hawes. A surprising amount of wrestling grappling out of Bruno Ferreira in this one here. Took obviously did a bit of his judo that the commentary kept talking about. Took down Phil Hawes, controlled Phil Hawes for a bit of the fight, and then he ended up knocking him out in the first round. Kind of hard to see because Phil Hawes is really good, but man, that chin just lets him down. Like this it just must be so hard to be Phil Hawes. And the fact that you know you have the talent to be a contender, you know you can beat these guys, but your chin is just so bad. Like, you get hit and you get knocked out, you know. I think Phil Hawes could be a really good coach. I feel like maybe Phil Hawes, if he wants to keep fighting, of course he can still do that, but I think he's going to get knocked out. I think Phil Hawes could get into coaching because he's got that crazy D1 wrestling background. He's obviously got good striking himself. He's young enough where he could be a coach and get involved in a little bit of light sparring. I think it's over for Phil Hawes. As soon as he got knocked out like that, I did say I don't think he's ever going to recover. Great performance from Bruno. Was able to show everything. Showed off, obviously, the judo that he had, the control that he has on top. He wants to be on the Brazil card. Put him on the Brazil card. I look forward to it. I'm pretty happy to see Bruno get a win. Really sad to see Phil Hawes get a loss. Of course, I will matchmake Bruno with his next opponent in another video. And now the third and final fight that I got incorrect. Ricky Simone lost to Mario Batista. Wow, Mario Batista looked really good in this fight. I will be honest, I definitely underestimated Mario Batista. I was about to say I don't think I underrated him too much, but I definitely did underrate Mario Batista. I guess at the end of the day, Ricky Simone, this was my reasoning for picking Ricky. Ricky Simone looks really, really good in 3-round fights. He's always moving forward, always pressuring, going for takedowns over and over and over again. Mario Batista was able to outwork Ricky Simone almost in his own game, was able to outbox Ricky Simone, was able to defend the takedowns, was able to get up as soon as Ricky Simone took him down. Like, Mario Batista with that style could be like the perfect sort of style to beat like Marab, you know, like, call me crazy, but the way that he was just able to out cardio Ricky Simone and get taken down and then just get up immediately was crazy. And not to mention, this was an absolute war. Both guys had absolute cardio for days to go to war like this. This is crazy. I think Mario Batista showed off a really good style that's going to be a tough style for a lot of contenders to defeat. A good opportunity for Batista. He went out there and he beat Simone. Simone was getting the takedowns, just wasn't doing enough really on the feet. And then he gassed out towards the end in a third round, which if he won, he wouldn't have won because I think 2 judges gave it 30-27 Batista. But the general consensus was that Ricky Simone, if he won the third round, he could have won, but obviously he wouldn't have won on the judges' scorecard. So anyway, the point is Mario Batista boxed him up at the end of the third round. Really good prospect. One thing I will say though is Batista looked a little bit smaller than Simone. I know Simone is shorter, but Simone looked real built, and compared to him, Batista looked a little bit thin. So maybe that size could be an issue if Mario Batista is to fight someone like Song Yadong in the future, just for example. But yeah, really good performance from Mario. I mean, I'm happy for him. 6-fight win streak now. He's a prospect that's really just kind of blossomed in the last few years. Jim Miller went out there and beat Gabriel Benitez. He was my only underdog pick. I know you see him as a favorite, but he was an underdog at the time that I picked him. And I believe Matthew Semelsberger flips to a dog on the day of the fight, so I guess that counts too. But I picked Jim Miller. He went out there, finished Gabriel Benitez. Benitez just looked a little bit rusty, in my opinion. You know, he just didn't really have anything for Jim Miller. On the feet, Jim Miller was able to outstrike him. And then obviously in the ground and the grappling, he was able to take down Gabriel Benitez and get the submission in the third round. He ended up getting the rear naked choke in round 3 after lighting up the legs of Gabriel Benitez. He obviously is going to be on UFC 300. I'm very happy Jim Miller won because that's what I was worried about. I was worried if Jim Miller lost, you know, I was like, oh man, we're never going to see him on 300. But he did say that, you know, other people are more like, other people want me on UFC 300 more than I do, as in like to him, it's not this like be all or end all, but for other people, like they're so passionate about him being on 300 like me. So he did say, he called out a couple people, of course. He did say Paul Felder is a name he's interested in for 300, and Matt Brown are names he's interested in. Either of those two would be perfect. My personal pick was Joe Lozon in a rematch, but if they don't want to do Joe Lozon, I understand. I think for UFC 300, Jim Miller versus Paul Felder is probably the most UFC 300 level fight, as in like the most hyped up fight, because I feel like I love Matt Brown. I love Matt Brown. Everyone loves Matt Brown. But Jim Miller versus Matt Brown is not as big of a fight as Paul Felder versus Jim Miller. So I feel like that's kind of what they might do. So hopefully that can happen. I like Jim Miller. I'm happy for him. And let's go on to the main event. I'm going to talk about this for a bit. The video's 13 minutes, so hopefully it doesn't go for too long. But the UFC didn't want Magomed Ankalaev to win this fight, and it's because the winner of this fight is probably going to get the next title shot. Now, Jamal Hill, I don't know how injured Jamal Hill still is. Like, is he still recovering from the injury? Because Alex Pereira is who I believe a lot of people are starting to believe is going to headline UFC 300. You can't do Ankalaev versus 300 for UFC 300. You can't. You can't do Ankalaev versus Pereira. So I feel like they really wanted Johnny Walker to win, because I feel like they could sell 300 on Johnny Walker versus Alex Pereira with a couple big title fights beneath it, and then obviously the big events, the big fights that they're still yet to announce. I don't know. And I will kind of make a comment now. A lot of people did say why. Ariel Helwani said, why is everyone so over the top with UFC 300? They've never really given a reason why it's going to be so big, and now everyone's got unrealistic expectations. Dana White set the expectations, the unrealistic expectations. I have a quote from Dana White himself on my phone right now. This is what Dana White said. What you can expect is the first prelim of the night is going to be like, holy, this is the first prelim of the night? This is insane. This can't even be right. These two shouldn't be on the first prelim of the night. That's how good 300 is going to be. Well, Dana, where is it? Get the oil. Anyway, if Ankalaev versus Pereira headlines UFC 300, I actually might lose it, because I think Ankalaev is not that exciting of a fighter. I know he got the KO. He can't headline UFC 300. He can't do it. You have to do Adesanya versus Pereira, or you have to do Hill versus Pereira. There's no other option. There's actually no other option. I don't know what we're gonna do, man. Or I mean, I mean, oh no. Anyway, that's the fight. The UFC didn't want Ankalaev to win. I did pick Ankalaev. Obviously, he was kind of more the obvious pick, but yeah, Walker looked good until he didn't. He got KO'd. One shot. Walker's chin has been in question for a while. I didn't expect Ankalaev to get the KO, but if Ankalaev goes out there against Alex Pereira and just strikes with him, it would be a better fight than if Ankalaev is to wrestle. But you guys don't know what I mean. We can't do it. We can't do Ankalaev on 300. We can't. Oh no. What a nightmare for the UFC to have to deal with, man. It's not good. It's not a good situation right now. UFC 300 is an absolute shambles. I'm going to make a video on it. I'm going to make a video on it for sure. And then my UFC 297 predictions will be out tomorrow. Let me know what you think in the comments below.